Last video, we're talking about Trump's tariffs here. I like Joe Oliver. I think his content is great. I know a lot of people are going to hate it. His jokes are terrible. There will be a lot of dumb jokes. So let's go. The jokes are terrible, yeah.
We're going to dive straight in with our main story this week, which concerns the ongoing chaos of Trump's tariffs. It's been an emotional roller coaster since Trump rolled them out last week with the help of the single dumbest chart in human history. That prompted the Dow to drop by nearly 4,000 points in 2 days. So by Monday, everyone was understandably freaking out, only for Trump to...
It's fucking sick, though, and insane. And this is why I always talk about technocracy, that a single human being has this power. That Trump can be this powerful to drop the world economy by 10% in a day. I mean, it recovered, blah, 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 right? But that's fucking insane to me. This is what I kind of stand for, that I believe no one should have this power.
Dismiss anyone concerned as panicans, which he said was a, quote, new party based on weak and stupid people. Though I'd argue the weak and stupid demo is, if anything, way overrepresented.
Why is Trump still using Truth Social? His friend is Elon Musk. Shouldn't he be fully back on Twitter, or how does that work?
Presented in government right now. Then on Tuesday...
Any president can do this, not just Trump. That's what I'm saying. No president should have power like this. This is something I kind of stand for. The world is very complex and crazy in this globalized world. He is actually on Twitter, and he owns Truth Social, okay? He will lose value on Truth Social. He's a stakeholder. Okay. What was I saying? Yeah, I really believe a complex and powerful country like America shouldn't really have a leader anymore. It should be led by councils.
Tuesday, Trump gave a speech to Republican donors where he floated major new tariffs on pharmaceuticals, told the audience, I know what the hell I'm doing, and claimed this.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything.
Yeah, I'm sure some have been pretty nice to him, the same way that you try to be nice if you suddenly found yourself in the same room as a monkey with a gun. Hi, monkey. Good monkey. Strong monkey. Please.
I'm literally developing a headache. Every time I do politics streams, man, I genuinely don't understand Hassan and Asmongold that can look at all this stuff for 8 hours. It's the biggest brain rot. The politics streams fucking kill me, dude. I can play Hoi for 12 hours, no problem, but this shit is killing me.
I'll do anything! By Wednesday morning, though, Trump's reassurances were getting more desperate, as he at one point posted, be cool, everything is going to work out well. A sentence that's never been true in human history.
Dude, I'm imagining the whole time you're an American that voted for MAGA, and you're about to retire. You just finished retirement, and your retirement fund is starting to pay out. But as you're trying to pay out, you're in the 10% drop from Trump. Like, fuck, that must have sucked, dude.
That is the phrase you hear before someone skateboards off a roof, shows you their homemade water slide, or asks you to hold the camera while they climb into the alligator exhibit to do something hilarious. Just a few hours later...
You should watch the Hassan debate. As I said earlier today, I've been watching the first 30 minutes of Hassan H3H3, and it was the biggest brain I've ever seen. It was insanity. They talk 20 minutes in front of millions of people if an anime sword is a swastika and anti-Semitic. It was insanity. It was pure insanity. And I never really watched Hassan much. I don't know much about Hassan, but he looked very weak in that debate. He looked very weak, and maybe now I'm a bit of a gossiper. I like to actually never gossip, but I sometimes wonder how Hassan could have gotten this big. I don't want to hate, but felt weird, man. But yeah, that debate, man, I feel like... I was laying in bed and I was watching the debate, and after 30 minutes, I'm like, Tommy, I literally felt this, I swear to God. I felt, if you keep watching this, Tommy, you're a fucking loser. If you watch this, you're a loser. And I turned it off and I was like, okay, let's listen to Warhammer. If you spend 5 hours listening to H3H3 and Hassan talk, man, you gotta fix your life. You gotta fix your life. That is not okay, bro. Seriously, Oklahoma, that's not okay.
Trump announced a 90-day pause on most of his biggest tariffs, and he did it so abruptly, it caught some key members of his own administration by surprise.
Yeah, Ethan was even terrible. Ethan was like, yeah, you have a swastika sword. What? I don't want to even talk about this shit.
Grilled his top trade
too fucking dumb.
On Capitol Hill.
It looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you and paused.
What does A and B? I want to understand. What does A and B mean?
The tariffs, the taxes on the American people. There's no strategy. You just found out.
Ambassador.
3 seconds ago, sitting here, we saw you.
That's true. That's true. That congressman later tweeted out this photo showing what it looked like to watch that guy get the news. And how do you think he found out? A push notification? A work email? Or 32 concurrent messages on the office group text where one guy goes, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the
Ken Noodle
fuck?
versus Tommy debate?
And another goes, holy shit. Another's like, lol, J fucking K, I guess. And the guy who's always asks dumb questions. He's like, wait, what's happening? And then the first guy sends the link to the Times article, and then the dumb one's like, oh my God, what the hell, did this just happen? And then everyone at the same time texts, yes,
I always imagine you are the media advisor or media team behind Trump, and you just, it's always burning. You can't keep up with him. It's like, fucking hell. What are we doing?
This week was total chaos. At one point, the daily trading range of the S&P 500 was more than 5% for 6 straight days.
I know what that means.
The previous times that happened were in March 2020, during COVID, late 2008, during the housing crisis, and October 1987, which, if you are too young to remember, was a stock market crash so massive, Nightline felt like it needed to do this to explain it to people.
Here once again to help us, my good friend Kermit.
Thank you, Dave.
Can you tell us what is a bear market?
Yes, well, thank you.
How do we explain to the American public that the market is crashing? Should we talk to them like adults? Nah, let's get Kermit and a bear.
Being a bear myself,
Thank you,
that is
Honky.
one of the first things we bears are taught in the caves. If I recall, a bear market is where prices are going down for a long period of time.
So
Muppet content?
one would wish, I suppose, for a bull market to drive the bears out.
No, we don't want that. We never want that.
Yeah, they explained a complicated financial crash with Muppets. A sentence so this show coded, I'm genuinely surprised that we didn't think of it. Honestly, if Ted Koppel had a British accent, glasses, way less gravitas, and occasionally referred to Kermit as a bona fide swamp snack, I couldn't tell the difference there. And the thing is, the turmoil isn't over, because what Trump's left in place includes...
The market crashed worse under Biden. We saw a video on that. It crashed worse under Biden. I'm actually checking. I don't know if you're correct. Comparing stock market trends. The problem is also, first, stock markets often don't care too much about presidents. It's also other things going on. We're looking at the first 100 days. Sorry, I need to look. What am I looking at here correctly? Does someone has a cool... COVID happened during Biden? Well, that's then really dumb. How is that Biden's fault if COVID happened? I'm looking for a better statistic. We saw a video yesterday, or 2 days ago, that looked at both of them. But if COVID happened during him, then what a dumb comment from you, Ken Noodle. What's this? Oh, Democrats really bad at running. Okay, what? No one cares. Blah, 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 blah. Down gains 40% on the Biden, trailing Trump on 0. The total return of Dow Jones in on each 20th and 21st century. That's how the Dow Jones was doing under certain presidents. Okay. Obama was crushing us. Bush Jr. was terrible. But once again, this is always hard to look at, because now you can argue, if you're an idiot, wow, Trump was doing better than Biden. But Biden got the COVID? No, it wasn't COVID under Biden. Yeah, under Trump, I mean, under Trump. Down to Biden, Lex, Trump, under Trump, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm looking for the, can I look at this? S&P 500, because he said there was a bigger crash under Biden. And now, this is Biden, right? I feel like I need a better source for this. This is all very washy-washy right now. This is COVID crash, right? This is the COVID crash. This is Trump. But then again, you can't blame Trump for that. It doesn't matter who's ruling the world. When COVID happens, you're fucked. It's no one's fault. When did Biden come? I have no idea. Do 5 years and you will see it. So this is the Trump tariff crash. And where is the worst Biden crash? 2022 was the Ukraine crash, which kind of is also nobody's fault. January 21st. January 21st. Came into office January 21st. So where did he have a bigger... Well, there were some crashes, yeah. But I think the Trump crash is bigger than any Biden crash. I'm just right now trying to once again show Ken Noodle he's wrong. We're doing that pretty often now, that Ken Noodle is just wrong about everything. But it looks like the biggest crash is under Trump in the last 5 years. Quite clearly. You don't need glasses for that. Yeah. Do you even have to prove it? I'm always going after Can Noodle. Unpopular opinion, both sucked. I think it doesn't matter too much. Also, I really don't like looking on the stock markets on the presidents, because the stock market is a very complex thing that has a lot of other things to do than just the president.
Including a baseline 10% tariff on all imports.
If COVID happens and you're president, you're just
145% tariff on China is still a monumental shift in US trade policy. And despite what some in the White House claimed, that the 90-day pause was part of the strategy all along, Trump himself...
It has fully recovered. Has it? I actually don't know. Let me check. S&P 500. Has it fully recovered? Was here. It hasn't fully recovered. You're once again wrong. It's on a way, but it hasn't fully recovered. We're still 500 points out. So you're once again wrong. I love you, Ken Noodle, but I'm gonna now stop reacting to your stuff. No hate, I love you, but it's... I mean, how many times a day I can give you a pounding, bro?
Seemed to admit that he did it in reaction to the market's panic.
I love you, bro.
I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
Hold on. A little bit afraid is a massive understatement. People were freaking out about their 401ks.
That must have been creepy. I was very, very happy I'm not invested. But I think, even if you don't like Trump, if your 401k goes down, just fucking stay calm. It's gonna come back.
Grandmas looking at their retirement plan and getting ready to open an OnlyFans to get through the next 5 years.
I agree with Trump there that people are panicking like crazy. Oh my God, it's the stock market, man. It sometimes goes down. Just fucking chill. We're in a bull market for years now. The stocks are totally inflated everywhere.
And it wasn't just ordinary investors. One financial analyst wrote after talking to fund managers, a few have quietly wondered if the president might be insane. Which is fair. Everyone knows the right time to ask if someone might be insane is 5 months after you elect them president. Look, this week was incredibly stupid, but it's important to understand exactly how stupid it was, because we're not out of the woods yet. And the damage the president's already done to confidence in our economic system could have lasting repercussions. So tonight, let's talk about Trump and his tariffs. Let's start with the fact that none of this should have been a surprise. Not only did Trump bring up the idea of 10% universal tariffs repeatedly on the campaign trail, he's been obsessed with the idea of punishing other countries with tariffs for years now. In fact, when he touched off a trade war with China in his first term, we spent 21 minutes unpacking it, and the arguments hold up pretty well, although I clearly do not. As evidenced by a YouTube comment from this week, which said, "I thought this was a new episode until I noticed John's hair was darker and face looked younger," which is both hurtful and fair. But that piece featured this clip of Trump back in 2011. Laying out his whole fantasy of how tariffs could work.
I was reading on this a while ago, how Trump is a big fan of... He loves America, I believe that, and he's a big fan of the late 1900s America. Before World War II and during World War II, the so-called home of free trade, America, was a massive tariff country with the beginning of industrialization. And America was indeed doing very, very well with tariffs before World War II. But this was applicable to the 19th and 20th century. And now we're living in a globalized world. And there's a Trump interview where he talks about this. The best America ever was when we had tariffs. Yeah, but that was in fucking 1890 or some shit, right?
Somebody said, well, what would you do? What can you do? So easy. I drop a 25% tax on China. And you know, I said to somebody that it's really the messenger. The
world was very globalized back then? Not true. Utterly wrong. Super, super wrong comment. If you look at the late 1920s, hundreds, the world was full of tariffs. Free trade was still not applicable. Free trade only happened to the biggest trader of all times, America, after World War II, when they finally approached free trade. Super, super wrong. Very wrong. I literally just read a book about this right now.
One man say, we're going to tax you 25%. And I could say,
I don't know why America is so mad at China, though, man. You guys, your capitalists, wanted to become rich, and they outsourced all the work to China, all your factories over there, and now you're fucking mad at them? It's kind of your own fault.
Another. Listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
Okay, putting aside how striking it is to hear the word motherfucker on C-SPAN, I kind of wish he just kept doing the voices there. You could have one guy say, listen, motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
I want to play Vicky Free now.
Guy say,
I want to do a
you
Vicky Free
bloody
campaign soon
dingo,
again,
we're
yeah. Because lately I think I'm a very calm Tommy. I play games very calm now, and Vicky Free will be perfect for that.
You're 25%, mate. Or you could have Bjork say, I would tax you 25 butterfly rainbow sneezes in happiness soup. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it, but the tariff is the important part. The point is, Trump has long believed that tariffs can fix our trade problems, and that's coupled with his insistence that trade is zero-sum, that if we buy more from another country than we are selling to them, we're somehow getting ripped off. But that is just not how it works.
Honestly, though, I'm very interested, and this is something a deep dive would actually make fun of. What really is a trade deficit? I don't fully understand that and where it comes from. And America and Trump is right that they have trade deficits, but are trade deficits a bad thing? And how would you really fix it without being an idiot? I don't know anything about that, but it's an interesting topic I would like to investigate one day.
Because we are getting things
because the tariffs are obviously not working. The problem with tariffs is that in the end, they just make the end consumer have higher prices to pay for like washing machines and shit.
Nobel-winning economist jokingly said, I run a chronic trade deficit with my barber.
There's
he
literally
never
university
buys
course
a
on this.
damn thing from me, which is just a classic economist
They aren't a bad thing
zinger.
necessarily.
Nevertheless, Trump applied both those beliefs to his initial tariff plan.
It just means you buy more than you're selling. But it doesn't mean... I always felt, and this is where I'm uneducated, I guess, I always thought if Trump says we have a trade deficit with China, they're ripping us off, does it mean that statistically, with factual mathematics, you lose money on China? Because I think you don't. Outsourcing production to China was the greatest thing ever for capitalism in America. You can sell these phones super cheap. You can sell everything super cheap. It's amazing, actually. People can buy. Thank you, Blob. So I think the answer is no.
Imposing massive penalties on countries indexed to the size of our trade imbalance, which led to some of the incredibly
very complicated. Yeah, that's why I said I would like to investigate it one day, maybe.
Perhaps
Thank
the
you, Blob.
dumbest of which was actually explained pretty well by Jim Cramer.
Let's go to the southern African nation of Lesotho, which had the misfortune of being one of the two most highly tariffed nations on Trump's list. They're being hit with a 50% duty on their exports to America. That happened because Lesotho only imported $2.8 million worth of U.S. goods last year, whereas we imported roughly $240 million worth of stuff from them.
Okay, I understand, but that's not a bad thing. Because what America imports from Ubuntu probably is useful, valuable, gets turned into products, and creates revenue. It seems it's really retarded to think like that.
Now, the thing is, Lesotho's a really tiny country. Virtually everything we buy from them is either apparel or diamonds. But because it's a very poor country, they can't afford to buy much from us.
Yeah,
so what happens now? To start, we're going to have to pay a lot more for any apparel or diamonds from Lesotho.
But if you put a tariff on Ubuntu Zuntu, it doesn't mean the American government pays more. It means that these companies that import like diamonds will then make the prices for the end consumer, you, the people, higher. And I understand that Trump wanted to do this, like the people have to pay more, but the taxes get lower, so it outweighs itself.
Maybe we can replace the apparel with diamonds? I mean, that's
but are taxes lower right now?
And the only way for Lesotho to get out of this jam is by importing more stuff from America, which it can't do because it
tariffs in the end hurt the
So
consumers.
the president has likely just made things more expensive for Americans and not really changed the behavior of our trading partners.
He's right. Shit.
Oh, I hate the laughing. I hate it. I love people like this. Hate me all you want. We have a guy like this in Germany. I love what they're doing. I love the work they're doing. But this fucking laughing track shit is killing it, man. They're such important people to democracy. How they expose stuff and talk about stuff. But the comedy always destroys it. I understand, though, they have to do it. Because if you don't make comedy, it gets less match views. You don't reach the people if you leave out the comedy aspect. I believe that.
Jim Cramer was right. I think I'm going insane. And quick side note there, if you're thinking, hold on, did he say Lesotho's sitting on top of a load of diamonds but they still don't have any money? I know, but we don't have time. That's a different story that I'm sure we'll do one day. I'll put a post-it note on my computer and everything. And while Trump's temporarily paused those huge tariffs on Lesotho and others, it is worth asking, what exactly is his endgame here? And it depends on who you ask. When the tariffs first came down, some in the White House insisted they'd be permanent trade barriers intended to raise revenue and bring jobs back home, while others claimed they were scared.
It seems to me, again, this is where I'm a bit just yapping. This is the art of the deal, what Trump is doing. If you read his book, it's all about you pressure. You make a deal with someone and you pressure them right here. I want this from you. But they're like, are you insane? Fuck you. And then you go here, and they're like, yeah, okay, I'm taking it. That's Trump thinking, right? You go insane, I want to invade Greenland, but then you settle for the middle thing. That's kind of what he's trying to do, I guess, while putting the whole fucking world into jeopardy here.
Tactic designed to help us negotiate more favourable deals. But those are two very different goals with different consequences for businesses
doing Skyrim
and workers
haggling.
who badly need to know which to plan for. So let's take each scenario in turn. And let's start with the idea that these tariffs are designed to shut out foreign competition and ensure stuff gets made here. There are a few issues with that, starting with the fact that lots of things aren't produced in the US, sometimes because they simply can't be at any kind of commercial scale. Even Trump's Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, pictured here rocking a cunty little bob, seemed to understand that last month when he said this.
Certain products, if I put a tariff on a mango, right? We can't grow mangoes in America. We just can't grow a mango. If you put a tariff on a mango, the mango would be more expensive. So then that's just like another version of income tax.
How do you
Okay,
think
so
about...
the idea is to not do that.
Right. The problem is,
He did
when
it.
the tariffs were announced, mangoes weren't exempted, so we did do that. And sometimes it feels like the best way to ensure Trump does something is to tell him not to do it. He's like a toddler, both because his brain is unable to grasp negations and also because he has a short torso, huge head, always looks like he's about to fall over and won't let anyone brush his hair. That same logic applies to other crops like coffee and bananas, but that is not all, because it's also not easy to make electronics here. Take the Nintendo Switch.
This reporter's a clown. I'm getting one guide again. I always do this, but I think you're a fucking idiot. I hate people in chat that go, this guy is a clown. This guy has for 20 years been exposing bad things. This guy is actually trying with, and his team is always checked facking. They know they're under a lot of scrutiny. Just because the jokes aren't funny and terrible, it doesn't mean he's doing a bad job and that he is a clown or anything. This guy has been doing more in his life for democracy than you will do in 100 lives. And I am a guy that believes in a bit of respect. Obviously, the jokes are terrible, but this fucking notion on Twitch shit of, what a dumb guy. Why are you watching this, man? Like, are you fucking stupid?
Too.
Fucking
the company
terribly
paused
stupid.
pre-orders for it this week because they didn't know how it'd be affected, as this analyst explained.
They got to figure out what they're going to get charged. Do they charge 50% more? Do they charge double? Do they even ship them?
How much of this is made in the U.S.? None of it.
None of it.
That is a good point, but an even better delivery of it. I want that guy on hand to respond
Laughing
to all
my ass
other
off,
situations.
respecting journalism.
How much birthday cake is left in the break room?
I need to stop
None
reading
of
chat,
it.
huh?
How much
Yeah,
of the
imagine
severance
respecting
Gulf plot did you
journalists.
actually understand?
How terribly dumb I am.
None of it. How much of Trump's trade briefing did he genuinely read? None of it. And if you think, well, hold on, why don't we just build a switch factory here? Well, when it comes to high-tech goods, key components have to be sourced from complex global supply chains. So it's not a matter of simply building a factory. There is a lot more to it.
Tomorrow, 8 hours.
How much would it cost them to start
Thanks to Kendall.
manufacturing switches here in the U.S.?
Tens of billions of dollars.
Billions?
Yeah,
That's
we'll have to
because
build
of
the
supply
infrastructure.
chain
The workers, this capitalism, the workers want higher wages
that's
than the
been
Chinese.
built over decades.
It would take 4 to 5 years to even...
And my point, though, is, Trump isn't fucking dumb. Trump is still not a stupid idiot. And he knows these things. He knows this. And I always feel a bit like, I think he knows this stuff.
build
And this
and
has
get done
other
a
meanings.
factory
This
here
has
in the
other
US.
goals.
And the reality is the assembly, the supply chains in Asia. If you just build a factory here in the U.S., where are you getting all the parts from? Still in Asia.
Exactly. And some of those components are presumably about to be subjected to heavy tariffs. And quick side note, among the many things that I'm mad about right now...
He devalues the dollar so the US can pay off their debts.
It's the fact that I have to spend time talking about how tariffs will impact the...
He devalues the dollar? I don't know what that means. That's something I should think. I don't know what that means. Yeah, he devalued the dollar a lot, okay? Wow, a lot? Jesus Christ. Well, it's just 10 cents, so he devalued it by 10%, kind of. If you look at 95 down to... Okay.
Switch instead of what I really want to talk about, which is that I only just learned the president of Nintendo in America is named Bowser.
How does that...
man,
I don't actually know. How is it historically? I have no idea. I have no idea about this stuff. How is it historically? This is just 2004. This is the big housing market crash. Damn, it's very fluctuating. And then something happened. Can someone explain this to me? I don't know what this is. In 2014, the dollar went insane. I remember this because my PokerStars payments got much less valuable. What the fuck happened here? What is this? Right now, it's actually just a normal point. Yeah, there's like a bubble here. What happened here? Thank you, Tom. You guys are geniuses. You guys know everything. What happened here and here that the dollar got so fucking insane? Obama happened. 2014 oil crash. The Arab Revolution. What? Sanctions on Russia after Crimea. I feel like no one in chat knows. I think no one knows. This is like too complex. Let's stop.
I don't shit you even a tiny bit. It's called Doug Bowser. Now, if you don't know, Bowser is quite famously the primary antagonist of Mario, the face of Nintendo. Now, in the comedy world, the president of Nintendo being named Doug Bowser is like someone gently setting a ball on a tee, handing you a bat and saying, please, have fun and swing away. But unfortunately, because this guy doesn't understand economics, I have to look at real Nintendo president Doug Bowser and say, sorry, everyone, no time for that. We've got math to do. It's a truly sad state of affairs, or to put it another way... Exactly.
Sorry, I have to pee so bad, I almost pee myself. We're gonna finish this and then Stellaris. I gotta pee really, really bad. Okay, let's finish this. I wanna actually play video games, man. Let's go.
The point is, if these tariffs stand, they could have the opposite of the intended purpose, as some business owners might realise it's now cheaper to have a factory outside the US and not have to deal with tariffs. But let's say that despite all of that, we still want all those manufacturing jobs that we lost to come back home.
How would you do it, I wonder? You're America and you want manufacturing to come home. That's a very complex question. Well, you will have to make it valuable for companies. But how can you ever afford that? If you say to Tim Cook, I want you to build Apple phones here, he's going to laugh at you. It seems pretty much impossible. Reduce the tax on that company. True, yeah, less corporate tax. But imagine how much lower you have to corporate tax in Apple that they come back from easy child labor in China. It seems almost impossible. Tax breaks. But if you do tax breaks, your deficit grows, right? I always feel like globalism is such a bad thing. Imagine you have a perfect world with no war and hate. Let the Chinese build your products. You fucking up your out. Everything is cheap. You create jobs over there. It's not a bad thing per se, right? But the world's a bit harsher than that. But it seems pretty impossible to bring them back. How much do you want to reduce tax on Apple when it's already zero in practice?
First, as we've discussed before, a lot of them simply don't exist anymore because they've been automated. And second,
Hope you had a great
even if we wanted to build
Aim.
brand new factories, it's worth knowing these new tariffs mean higher material and equipment costs for manufacturers wanting to do that. And in fact, tariff-swollen building costs have already helped to kill a $300 million plastics recycling plant in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is a real shame.
Do you believe corporate would not increase their prices just because you lower their tax? Remember when they cut some taxes during COVID to do exactly, but prices still went up in Germany. I'm so glad my children future will work in an unsafe factory for minimum wage. In Saudi Arabia, there are fake Apple stores because they can't have Apple here.
For multiple reasons, including they would have helped make Erie, Pennsylvania, known for something other than the town that boiled a Revolutionary War general's corpse in order to separate his flesh from his bones so they could ship him back to his hometown. The idea there being, they reassemble the skeleton once he was in his final gravesite.
Once in a while, politics seems good.
Some bones wound up falling out of the wagon on the trek, as bones are wont to do. It's an incredible story, and thanks to the full recycling plant, remains the only thing I will ever know about Erie, Pennsylvania. And even if we do end up bringing some manufacturing jobs home, you also have to factor in that other countries will put tariffs on our goods in return, which will hurt other industries. The current massive tariffs on China are incredibly worrisome for people like this soybean farmer in Tennessee.
That trade relationship with China was built over decades and decades.
He probably voted for Trump, and now this, huh?
Will Hutchinson, a fourth-generation Tennessee farmer, says he is...
To talk about generations, quick little thing. I mostly listen to the news in my car. When I drive around, I listen to a German news station that's only news and documentaries. And they had a cool documentary about the second oldest onsen in Japan. It was this 90-minute documentary about an onsen in Japan. And it's been in family hand for 1,300 years. And they are interesting because for the first time in 1.3k years, a woman just took over the onsen. But they talked about how the onsen industry is dying. Young people don't care about onsen anymore. They don't give a shit and they don't go and they have like financial issues now. Cool little side story. Thank you, TommyKay News, Twitch Prime. Wow, cool story, guys.
Concerned.
This is going to have an immediate and drastic impact to our ability to compete on the global marketplace for our goods that we produce here in this country.
Yeah. That literal soy boy is right.
Such a
this
cheap
is
joke.
Pointless. If I wanted to watch long-standing relationships destroyed in an instant, I'd just go to a basketball game to see which couples act weird when they end up on the Jumbotron. You can enjoy relationships falling apart without jeopardising the global economy. And at this point, I'm sure some Trump supporters are saying, well, these were never intended to be permanent. It's that second possibility that you mentioned earlier, that the tariffs were always just a way to give Trump leverage to renegotiate bad trade deals.
But that doesn't seem to
and
work.
after he announced that 90-day pause, that was definitely the message getting sold.
This is the art of the deal. This shows how strong our president is.
A huge win for the president, a huge win.
Dico, that's your news, man? That's so creepy. That's like late-stage Orwellian. Even the same with CNN and the left. Don't get me wrong, but the president is amazing. He does nothing wrong, people. Just drink your Coca-Cola and eat your chips. Everything's fine. Fucking hell, man.
For the country, his biggest accomplishment of the second term.
Trump won. He's doing exactly
The fuck? Looks like one of the goblins in the bank from Harry Potter, man. Holy shit.
what he said he would do.
He's a genius in negotiating. He is very calculating in how he...
That's the biggest news station that millions of people watch. Fuck, man. Fuck.
He negotiates. He understands the art of the deal better than anyone. And he's gotten results in a very short period of time.
I think Fox is ranked 1.
I don't know.
I think so.
What's
I'm very
more
sure Fox is ranked 1 by
the
viewers.
shameless sucking up or the needs to put the words, "We told you not to freak," at the bottom of the screen, which is funny coming from Fox News of all places, considering most of their broadcast feature messages like why you should absolutely freak about the green M&M. But let's at least consider the possibility this was all about gaining leverage for negotiating new deals. That was definitely the White House's spin after the pause was announced, with Trump's Treasury Secretary claiming it had happened because the tariffs brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. But a couple of things about that. First, the White House said it will not be releasing a list of the countries that had allegedly done that.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds bullshit.
You know. And remember, Trump's openly admitted the key reason for his climb down was people got the yippies. And remember, even with the pause, we still have 10% tariffs on nearly every country in the world, which is still massively disruptive, both to them and to us. And that includes countries like Singapore, where we're going to struggle to get a much better deal, given that we face no tariffs there and actually have a trade surplus. And I'm not saying there aren't countries where we have legitimate trade disputes, because there are, most notably China, where there are major issues from their heavy subsidies for homegrown industries to their theft of US companies' intellectual property. Resolving those issues is difficult. It requires diplomacy and a coordinated strategy with our allies. But instead, we've alienated those allies and are going into any future negotiation having provoked China into putting massive tariffs on our goods too. But don't worry, because Trump's charismatic Treasury Secretary doesn't seem to think they're going to be able to hurt us at all.
It was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. We are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
OK, setting aside that playing with a pair of twos sounds like how you describe a threesome with Don Jr. and Eric. That is incredibly simplistic because it ignores that China's leverage in a negotiation isn't confined to just tariffs. It can hurt us in other ways too, including by cutting off access to rare earth elements we may badly need. And before you think rare earth elements are just some fancy powder Gwyneth Paltrow adds to a morning smoothie to enhance vaginal wellness, you should know they're actually essential for everything from wind turbines to computer chips to F-35 stealth fighter jets.
Is it weird?
And incredibly...
Is it weird how we Christians believe in God, but God gave all the oil to the Arabs and all the rare earths to the Asians, man? Fucking hell, God, what do you do?
Wasn't even the most reckless player in the Trump administration's messaging to China this week, because J.D. Vance, true to form, was even more of a dick.
What has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? And the answer is, fundamentally, it's based on two principles: incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
Wow. I know it is hard to take from someone with this accent, but you are really not supposed to use the word peasants anymore. That is incredibly insulting, especially coming from the man who, remember...
The question is, did the Chinese peasants ever say thank you?
is next in line to run the country if anything were to happen to Elon Musk. So it is no wonder those comments went down pretty badly in China.
The government's response? Swift and scathing.
It's both astonishing and lamentable to hear this vice president make such ignorant and disrespectful remarks.
As a J.D. Vance.
On China's tightly controlled internet, government censors are allowing Vance's interview to go viral, amplifying the outrage, igniting anger and sarcasm. Have you said thank you for the money we lent you? In reference to China being the second largest foreign holder of U.S. government debt, and that infamous
I really want to do a stream one day where I want to show you something deeply that is so interesting, who J.D. Vance really is and who he works for. Hashtag Peter Thiel. We should do a stream about that. Maybe that could be your deep dive. Can't Noodle, that would be a great stream to really show who is Peter Thiel and what does he have to do with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, in my opinion, factually, a very, very dangerous human being.
Office exchange with Ukraine's president.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid burn. And I guess, in a way, it's reassuring to know that despite our differences, the American and Chinese people can come together to agree that it is fun to dunk on this cursed Cabbage Patch bitch. And look, you can say, well, that's all well and good, but I still trust Trump to make a deal. But here's the thing. We actually know what happens.
Like, I still can't get sorry, man, but I often like to think about the human race. What will history books say, right? What will history books say? And when he said to Zelensky, did you ever say thank you? That was a historical moment, in my opinion. That unbelievable. I know there's a lot of unbelievable shit nowadays where you just go, what? But when he said that, that was insanity. Pure fucking insanity, bro.
When he starts a trade war, because remember, he did a version of this in his first term and it didn't go great. If you look back at his tariffs back then, protecting specific products and industries like washing machines and steel, they might have worked in a narrow sense by creating modest job gains. They're credited with saving several thousand jobs in the steel industry and creating around 1,800 jobs manufacturing washing machines. But in the broader sense, those jobs cost us a lot. Trump's tariffs wound up raising prices to the point where it's estimated American consumers and businesses had to pay more than $900,000 a year for every steel job created and over $800,000 a year for each job making washing machines, putting the total cost of those jobs in the billions of dollars. And that's before you get to the fact that because his tariffs on metals drove up costs...
Well, luckily, Doge is gonna not bring any more condoms to Gaza so we can make the money back, right?
...for other industries.
Check the beginning of the stream, Givenen. Check the beginning of the stream.
One study estimated they actually resulted in as many as 75,000 fewer manufacturing jobs. And when it comes to China in particular, his first-term tariffs did bring in billions by raising the costs of their goods here. But the broader damage to American farmers after China retaliated was so severe that 92% of what we collected went right back out the door in the form of bailouts to them. And the kicker is, we didn't get much out of all of that. Because after a trade agreement was reached, Trump excitedly bragged he'd got China to commit to purchase an additional $200 billion in US products. But later analysis showed it effectively bought none of those goods. None of them. But please, don't worry. I'm sure Trump definitely learned his lesson, and this time he's going to get an empty promise for $500 billion. Fool him once, shame on him. Fool him twice, that's basically what everyone does. And remember, Trump's first-term tariffs are absolutely dwarfed by what he's done over the last 2 weeks. And it's not like he's negotiating from a particularly strong position right now, because everyone knows he just blinked. The bond markets got the yippies, and he blinked. And again, it's good that that happened. I'm glad he blinked. But it's weird to claim it's a brilliant negotiating tactic when you've already backed down before a single deal is reached. And the thing is, this could all cost us an awful lot, because maybe the most striking thing over the past 2 weeks has been the degree to which it's become clear the world's trust in America has been shattered.
And that's really interesting, right? That you have this man running for a 4-year term and the damage he's done, right? With your ultimate ally, Canada, with the EU, how easily fast you could destroy these relationships. But once again, I kind of believe a bit this is all planned. I think they're not that stupid. Stellaris is starting after this. Please shut your mouth and use your brain. The ex-ultimate ally. I think this is a bit planned.
This isn't just the ordinary give and take of...
This is, I saw a thing on this. What you need to... This is something we can do a deep dive on one day if you want. The entire MAGA movement and MAGA doctrines is based on Steve Bannon and his ideas and agendas. And one thing Steve Bannon talks about is the throwing shit doctrine. What it means is you throw so much shit at the public, like a Trump does, and you see what sticks, and it creates a forest of shit where no one can see anymore. You start saying outrageous things like we're going to invade Greenland and we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico and Gaza will be a fucking hotel. They're not that dumb. Trump doesn't believe in this shit like he's going to turn Gaza into a thing. But it's based on Steve Bannon stuff from the Breitbart guy. Throw all this shit, see what sticks, and make people so confused they don't fucking know what's going on anymore, man. I don't think this is all just stupidity and this guy's just an idiot. I don't think it is.
Negotiations. Countries are openly saying...
There is a lot of people that benefit from all this shit. It's just not you and me.
Things are different now. Canada's Prime Minister actually summed it up pretty well the day after Trump's initial round of tariffs were announced.
The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over. While this is a tragedy, it is also the new reality.
Wow, that is a bleak thing to hear. Tragedy is the new reality is a grim summation.
Tragedy is the new reality. Jesus, man. Ouch.
Of the state of world affairs. But also, I'm just going to say it, kind of a fucking bar. Honestly, you slap that title on a new Fall Out Boy album, the girls are going feral.
Okay, that's a good one.
And it's not just world leaders. Investors are making it clear they no longer have the trust they once did in the stability of the American economy. Usually, when the stock market drops, the market for US government bonds improves because they're seen as a safe investment. This week, though, they both went down, which is a terrible sign. As one economist put it, investors and central banks are selling treasuries and dollars due to a loss of confidence and credibility in American assets. Financial chaos has its cost. That is bad. And by the way, that is from Friday after the pause was announced. And that is the thing. While everyone may want to pretend that this crisis is past us, it's just not. Even Chuck Schumer seemed to miss that point when he tweeted out, "History will remember April 9th, 2025 as America's actual liberation day, the day that President Trump backed down from his ridiculous tariff fiasco." But it's not over, Chuck. We dodged a bullet, but the monkey still has a gun. And incidentally, if anyone watching this is close to Chuck Schumer right now, please take his phone, take it out of his hand, and throw it into the fucking ocean. So what do we do? Well, ideally, Congress would realise just how close we came to financial Armageddon and take away the president's power to unilaterally impose tariffs. There's actually a bill in Congress right now, co-sponsored by Chuck Grassley, that would require the White House to justify tariffs and then give lawmakers the opportunity to reject them within...
How is that not already a thing? That's insanity. That sounds like a basic working democracy. If the president wants to form a tariff, it has to be going through Congress, right? But it's not. He can't just do it with his what's it called? The thing? The fuck? That should be the most normal thing on earth. Executive orders.
In 60 days of enactment, which seems more than reasonable.
Yeah, that seems like democracy.
You're going to need 67 votes to beat a presidential
Checks and
veto.
balances.
And Republicans like Senator
Sorry, again, I want to learn that.
within
What?
60 days of enactment, which seems
Let's
more
hope
than
that
reasonable.
This situation will figure itself out and we all live happily ever after. Just don't pay attention to anything going on
Thank you for
around
the tier
you.
2, buddy. Don't worry. Stellaris is coming and Nicole take commands of this shit.
The problem is, you're going to need 67 votes to beat a presidential veto, and Republicans like Senator John Kennedy are refusing to sign on using this logic.
I have not joined the Grassley bill. I'm not likely to join the Grassley bill. The Grassley bill will not pass, and I just think it's a distraction. The most immediate question for me is, the president is a pit bull. He's won. He's caught the car. The question is, what's he going to do with the car?
Look, that is a shitty answer in so many different ways, but the main one is the whole idiom, the dog that caught the car, is based on the fact dogs have no plan for what to do after they catch it. That is damning enough alone. No one says he's like the dog that caught the car as phase one of the dog's long-term strategy to reshore manufacturing. Also, you're a co-equal branch of government. It is your job to stop that dog, not stand back and say, I don't know, guys, let him cook. There's always the chance of an Air Bud situation here. Look, I don't know where things are going to go next. We're taping this on Saturday. Who knows what's happened between now and when you are seeing this? Maybe Trump will have rolled the tariffs back even further. Maybe he'll have put even bigger new ones on mangoes. What is clear
I'm so fucking done. I just want to play games now.
Destabilising our economy with no real plan of action. And all I'll say is, if our next episode opens up with me sitting next to a chart of the NASDAQ and Miss Piggy, it means we are fucked.
My tariffs aren't working. Have you tried turning off again? As a German, I can only say fighting against the whole world at the same time is not smart. Oh, man, bro. Okay, anyway, GG. That was politics, TommyKay News.
She slipped in my fingers like sand. Heard that she had a man. Now I'm just sitting here sad. Oh, well, shit sail. She slipped in my fingers like sand.